Crazy.
I mean, yeah, looking at the results come in, obviously we've changed the government, but the percentage of votes that Labour got is what 30% of the voting population, I think, something like this, and obviously they get like 60% of the seats. So electoral reform is obviously something I'm a big believer in. We've got to get closer to the sentiment of the people, but the problem is it requires the people in charge to actually change the system that should deliver them into power. So it's almost impossible for that to happen. Very, very difficult. But anyway, we'll be talking about the implications of the new government in Brainfood Live later next month. We've got an event set up for that. How does the new Labour government impact the world of recruiting? What has happened with taxation, business confidence, labour law? What can we anticipate in all of those things? Neil Carberry is going to be joining us. Tony Wilson is going to be joining us from the Institute of Employer Studies. We're going to get a few more people that are basically policy wonks, so to say, that have actually read the manifesto and understand direction of travel. And then we're going to see how that all plays out there. So it's going to be an exciting moment for everyone there. Make sure you follow the channel, by the way. I'm going to set that event up shortly and you'll be able to see it. But anyway, we're live, everybody. Welcome to Brainfood Live on air, bringing it to you every Friday, no fail. It's episode 263. And I'm very excited to be having this conversation with you because I think it's a really important topic for all of the people in our industry to be confident at giving a talk and be confident at giving a public speech. Now, I was one of those people way back when. I was like everyone else, basically didn't think there was any reason for me to get on stage, didn't think I had anything to offer. And I have to thank a few people for encouraging me that was otherwise the case. One of which is a person that's on this show later on, Bill Boorman, who set up the incredible True series of events, of course. And that's a great segue into public speaking because you're not actually on stage, but you're in a group and you're giving your opinion in front of those group of people. Very powerful. But also our friend Stephen O'Donnell, who actually just basically dropped me into an event. I think someone had dropped out at an event. He said, "Oh, I need you to do this." And it was like, he kind of really nudged me to do it. And I enjoyed that. And I realized that since then, it's been a really powerful sort of part of my journey. And I've benefited massively from it. So I heartily encourage everyone to give it a go. And if you do care about public speaking, today's the show for you. Because we're going to be bringing together a load of people that have had coaching, have had experience, have organized events. These are individuals that know what a good public talk is, and we're going to try and offer you some tips, get into the right mind frame, but also get into the right, some easy to do techniques that are going to help you to deliver a knockout talk. So anyway, let's just do some sound checks real quick. If you're on Crowdcast, everybody, let me know whether you can hear and see me okay. I'm actually in a different location. I'm in Amsterdam right now in the offices of We Are Keen. So thank you, We Are Keen, for helping this show keep going on the road. All good on Crowdcast. Very good, Jim. We had some problems with LinkedIn a couple of times, actually. So I want to make sure whether you can hear me okay on LinkedIn, wherever you're watching this. I think there's loads of LinkedIn's going live right now. So if you're watching my LinkedIn or anyone else's, let me know in the comment thread whether you can hear me okay, and we should be good to go. All right, I think we should be all right. It looks like it's fine. Okay, cool. A quick word, by the way, for the setup for this. RECFEST happening next week. We're all going to go to that. It's going to be an amazing event. And there's also a lot of newbie speakers going on first time. So we wanted to address that audience particularly. Recruitment events company, obviously amazing. RECFEST already sold out, but get yourself on the wait list. You might as well, because this thing is, you never know what might happen in terms of late release tickets. Happening in Nashville later this year as well. And of course, back again year following. All right, cool. We've got Adam Gordon with us in the house. Adam, great to see you, mate. How's life?
Hi, thank you for having me again. Life is good, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. In a pub, as usual, Adam. One wonders what a tech entrepreneur should be doing on a Friday afternoon. But here's the example, right?
Yes. In the pub. Absolutely. Yes.
That's it. Good stuff. Okay, Adam, did you read the newsletter last week? And if so, what was interesting about it, man?
I did. So let's talk about a few things. The first is I really enjoyed Mike Stamp's LinkedIn blog about the pros and cons of sharing interview questions ahead of time. And so I think it was a very balanced piece of information. He stated that finding the middle ground is probably the recommendation. The pros of sharing the interview questions in advance are things like reducing interview anxiety, encouraging inclusivity, promoting deeper responses, leveling the playing field. Some people are really good on their feet, and reducing unconscious bias. Like some people are really quick thinking, and they focus on the content, over thinking about it and then responding with something a bit deeper. The cons are the risk of over preparation, so it can come across as quite rehearsed, like over rehearsed. It probably does give some people a bit of an unfair advantage, because those who are better at preparing for things. I don't know why that's a bad thing, to be perfectly honest.
It's a really interesting point. I mean, folks, if you haven't read this idea, do look at the blog post I just shared. It's like, do you share your interview questions to your candidates in advance of the interview? I think intuitively, most of us are going to say no. I don't want them to know in advance. But then I think Mike makes a very powerful argument as to why you should do that. But really compellingly, he also makes the counter argument as to why you shouldn't. And then he comes out with, okay, here's actually what I would recommend, which I love the balance that he's put there. And he lays out pros and cons. So one of the cons is you might get over-prepared canned answers, which you don't really want. You don't want a guy reading off script. But you also don't want someone who might just forget something, it's not a memory test. Someone might just not remember. And it's like, why is this person being penalized for it? I'm in two minds. I'm ambivalent, but there's a lot of plus reasons. I think the point is, go and digest that post, and then come to your own conclusions as to whether it's a good or bad thing.
I think the most important thing is to be consistent. Don't hand them out to some candidates and not to others.
Yeah, well, it's a clear no-go. Imagine if you're feeding questions to candidates in order to get them through the process, which, by the way, now that you mention it, has actually happened. I remember recruiting into the public sector. There were obviously some candidates that were meant to get the job, and they were just like fed the questions that were going to be answered. So really crazy stuff. Anyway, thank you for the share, Angela. That's really interesting. A really interesting point. Okay, cool. Give us something else, Adam.
Yeah, let's talk about networking. I would have thought that networking is like one of the, possibly the number one most important skill for a recruiter. I don't know if there's others that are more important. There possibly is, but I was quite shocked to see the results of your poll. 177 people took part in the poll around how do you rate your networking skills. Over a quarter said below average, and 32% said better than average, which is fine. But it was like more than that who said below average or terrible. It was like nearly 50% or something. So I feel like, is that like HRIS analysts or something like that who are answering that and saying they're terrible at networking? Because recruiters generally should be pretty excellent at this.
Yes, and there may be an argument to say, has the recruitment industry expanded to take in different personalities over time? So you've got,
this is true.
People are more sources. It's great to get those folks in, but they're very analytical. They're very much in front of screen. You've got marketing people, recruitment marketers. You've got data analysts coming in, even some software people coming into the recruitment function. All of that, I think, very welcome. But it might mean that the stereotypical recruiter type person who's, able to work the room, so to say, is no longer the default template. But aside from that, I would say that a good point, Akbar. It's not only hustlers doing it, but I would say that almost everyone can improve their networking. Even someone who rates themselves as really good, there's probably stuff that can really support you to do that. And we'll probably do a networking show. Like, can we get someone who actually has systematized what it is to network, and do they know how to do it? Maybe share some tips on how that works. Let me know in the comments, folks. Would that be a good show to do? How to be a better networker? Let me know in comments.
Yeah,
okay,
I mean,
cool.
You're right about the variance in the jobs in recruitment these days. There's another one as well, which is I think that and Akbar's point is right. For anybody not on Crowdcast, he said, yeah, actual professionals are doing recruitment now. And Chloe's made a really good point as well, saying the introverted who pretend to be extroverted during working hours. Since the pandemic, I mean, I don't know whether I was ever extrovert or not, but certainly since the pandemic, I'm absolutely unsociable. And networking is not something that I tend to do very much at. So I wonder whether we have changed as humans as well over time.
Good point. I actually had a conversation today about younger people coming into the office. I've been podcasting all day, and basically the first conversation I had was this podcast was directed a little bit to first jobbers coming in, first time graduate into first job, and it seems that this is the generation that actually did spend last couple of years actually studying remote. So it had a really strange finish to their academic career, and now they're moving into the world of work where you might have to do a lot of in-person stuff, and maybe a lot of the edge is rubbed off, because professional networking is different from going to the pub and having a laugh. There's overlap, but there's different ways in which you do things. So I think it's probably a good show to do. Although, how do we identify someone who's an expert? Maybe we could actually look at whoever's voted, the 6% who voted themselves to being amazing at this, get them to volunteer themselves in, and we do a similar show. We say, okay, give us a tip. That might be interesting. Cool. Give us one more, mate.
Yeah, let's talk about the UK labour market report from Indeed. So, I think your summary pointed out something quite interesting, which is that there remains strong demand from people overseas to come and work in the UK. But there was a few other things that I picked up on. So the labour market's cool, but it remains competitive for employers across many sectors, including professional services, STEM industries, and services industries. There is a persistently high inactivity in terms of the supply of potential workers. So there's just not enough happening. Lower paid jobs tend to find it harder to hire more. So salary, even though like people say salary is not really the number one thing, it actually probably is quite important. And then flexibility remains a real focus. So we've gone from, I think we've hit a bit of a kind of plateau around, I think we know what work from home and work from anywhere and whatever looks like now, but the companies that are, and industries that are the most flexible. And of course, some companies and industries can't be flexible. They're just inbuilt into what they do, that you can't serve drinks from home or whatever it might be. So, yep, interesting information.
Yeah, Hiring Lab at LinkedIn, at Indeed, should I say, do a brilliant post. It's kind of semi-regular, but each one is really just packed full of information that they've obviously drawn from their own proprietary data. It's just very interesting to review. This one, they've done a kind of a pulse report on the UK. Obviously we know we're in tough economic climes at this point, but it's very interesting to study sort of what the trends are over time, and how that affects, but kind of it contextualizes our own experience in the market. And I think that's just very useful to know, simply because, you don't want to be in a situation where you believe that, you're just drowning and no one else isn't sort of also having some challenges. Great blog to follow, even if sometimes the data is less than positive. But we need to be realistic in terms of observing what's going on out there. Cool.
Just do one more very quick one, which is like hat tip to the marketing team at Jovio, because They put together, here's the key questions you need to ask of programmatic advertising suppliers, which I thought was quite interesting. So I went to go and take a look. And I'd heard of Jovio, and I knew they were in the recruitment marketing space. But after I took a look at, like, here's how to do it. It's basically an RFP template. And I took a look at this, found it quite interesting, and then went to Jovio's website to find the very first product listed on their website is programmatic advertising. So
yeah.
Quick offer.
They were smart.
To anybody that's here, if anybody's looking for the RFP template for your recruiter enablement workspace, please go to my website, which is where you'll find that.
Classic. Do you know what? You should adopt it, man.
Because I've done it. We did it with Candidate ID. We did an RFP template for talent pipeline software. It's a brilliant thing to do.
Brilliant. You should share the link to that product into the chat. I'm sure the current sponsor wouldn't mind, because the current sponsor is actually a recruiting events company who we've promoted massively, who also don't need our promo because they've sold out already. So anyway, by the way, Jamie can't join us, unfortunately. He just pinged me on Messenger. At obviously event sort of in pipe, loads of things to try and jiggy around, so we're gonna have to move it around. But let's bring our guests on. In fact, no, before we bring our guests on, let's just share your thoughts, Adam, because you're now very fluent. You've always been on stage as a result of being a recruitment leader as well, and the CEO of business. It's kind of obligatory that you have to be able to do this. I wonder whether you could give any advice to the audience in terms of, public speaking, giving a great talk. Like, what are the differences between the talks that you felt have been amazing compared to the ones that haven't gone so well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not a huge expert. I have done quite a lot of it. My personal techniques are, if I leave the UK, do it in a kilt, because people remember you. So I think do something which means people are going to remember you. Don't do it in a grey suit. Do it like Bill Boorman. Be unique, be different, be yourself. That's the first thing. The second thing is, don't put loads of text on slides. Honestly, like, any more than about 6 words on a slide is absolutely awful. You can't have people reading a slide and trying to listen to you at the same time. It does not work. Absolutely use data. However, use graphs and pie charts and things like that. People really love that. It brings the story to life. If you're not an expert around building a deck, get somebody to build it for you. It doesn't cost very much to get someone off TaskRabbit to build you a much more compelling deck than you can do yourself. And be succinct. Just practice it. Be succinct. Time yourself. From a non-expert, that's just, like, off the top of my head, some of the things that I would recommend doing. But you've got a bunch of experts coming on, so I can't wait to hear from them.
No, I mean, everyone we've got coming on is actually someone who has got that lived experience. And I think you made some really interesting points. So I think clothing is important. Like, sometimes you just got to strike different. I mean, you can use it or not. I mean, it's totally okay to rock up as you see more as comfortable. But sometimes, a visual presence makes sense. Obviously, Scots have got a cheat code on this. Because you're the only blokes that could wear skirts basically and get away with it. But there's other things you can do that are slightly different. I remember a friend of mine, Rene Beaulieu. I don't know whether you remember Rene. Really, really wonderful guy. Did brilliantly, and he's kind of taken a 2-year hiatus away from this. Hopefully, he'll come back at some point, because he's really one of the smartest folks we have in the industry. He'd always wear the same things, so Steve Jobs' approach, and because he was also thinking about the cameras. And he wanted to have a very distinct, consistent brand across whenever anybody's taking pictures of him. And that was one of the things he was focused on. I love the idea of the density of the deck. I think there's 2 arguments here. Yes, putting too many bullet points is no bueno. You could probably put a list any more than 5 is no good, and ideally 3. There is an argument to say you can put more density in a deck that you want to be read later on. But you've got to support that with strong visual content. You can't just put loads of words in there and expect to get away with it, unless you can really overlay the information. Mary Meeker, do you remember her when she did the internet reports thing? She used to have quite high density slides, but she'd obviously use them as a prop. She wasn't expecting people to read it. She'd just have a headline people read, then the text that then people follow up on later on. So really powerful stuff. Akbar, you could definitely get away with a shell suit. In fact, in terms of dress sense, I don't think there's many people that could compete with Akbar Karenga. So I think he's going to be totally fine no matter what he's wearing. And yeah, keep it succinct. Absolutely. Okay, good stuff. Let's keep rolling forward. We're going to try and do a roll on, roll off here. And by the way, folks, if you're in the crowd and you've got a tip that you want to share, let's experiment with something. You can actually raise your hand to see whether you want to come on stage. So if you want to do that, raise your hand on the right-hand sidebar. You could try that. And then we'll see how we go. Oh, by the way, whilst you're doing that, why don't you also take a vote on the polling system? Have you ever given a public poll? I want to just get a little bit of a flavor as to where we're at with all of this. Currently, we've got 71.43% of say yes, they have given a public talk and they want to keep going and doing it. So we've got a strong group sort of verdict so far on people who want to do this. Okay.
One other quick thing. I was just thinking, one other quick thing. I know that I don't know if this is useful. It's probably not useful at all for anybody, but I'll just tell you my experience. My experience is when I first started talking on stage and first started talking on like webinars and whatever it might be, I was pretty politically correct, and I was I didn't say anything that was controversial. I tried to add value, and now I don't give a shit. I say whatever I think, and I do not care if people like it or don't like it or whatever. I just say whatever I think. So I don't know whether that's an age thing or it's a I don't know, stage of career thing or whatever. But like there's a point at which certainly I have gone, doesn't matter. I'll just tell the truth about absolutely everything.
That's interesting, Adam, and I think it's refreshing as well. I think corporate speak definitely turns people off. Like that's not why they're doing it. And they're there for you to hear your insight, and sharing your insight, I think, is very important. You don't want to be a contrarian for contrarian's sake. I think I've seen that sometimes as well, which is a bit annoying. People who just stepped up to say triggering stuff, and it's like, do you really believe that, or are you just trying to trigger the audience? And it's like, okay, you might get a round of applause or something, but it's not really adding too much to to the learning. But yeah, I think you're there to not just toe the party line. It's like you might have some unique insight that people will find valuable. So definitely go ahead and share this. Okay, I want to bring on Sam Bertu firstly, not only because he's a fantastic on-stage presence, but he also has a very nice velvet kind of tuxedo thing, which is kind of similar to your kilt. It's like a signature piece of kit. Which, I think gives him some power and confidence. But it's something that's very useful. There he is, Sam Bertu. Sam, wonderful to see you, mate.
Yeah, good to see you both.
Hair's looking magnificent, can I just say. Sam, for the people who don't know you, can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Yep. I'm Sam, VP of Talent Solutions at HackerJob. That's who I am and what I do. HackerJob is a technical hiring platform. And previously I worked with Jamie and Co at the Recruitment Events Co. So yeah, a bit of experience there as well, but by no means an expert. And I don't think you can become an expert at doing this either.
No worries. And by the way, Jennifer Candy, heads up to you for sharing that 10-year-old picture of young Sam at when he's a RECFEST newbie. I was like, what on earth has happened to that young man?
He looked too young to be there.
Crazy, brilliant picture, but you've grown into who you are, Sam. You're much more the power is with you today, as it wasn't there before. But anyway, really interested to know how you strike me as someone who's just very comfortable on stage, and I want to understand, like, how did you get to that comfort level, or how did you project that comfort level? Was that a journey, or do you think that was just an innate thing out from your character?
I think Christina popped it in the chat earlier. I had a very similar experience. First public speaking gig was by accident. There was nobody else there to cover. And actually I ended up fumbling my words, kicking off an event. And I remember Jez Rousson kind of jumped in and was like, oh, don't forget this bit, which was a bit of a disclaimer. which was important, right? And I think everybody has that, even when you're a seasoned speaker, and Hung, you've done more talks than probably anybody on here, bar Bill, around the world. And I think the reality is, before each time you go on stage, you're going to have a bit of nerves. I think you're a narcissist if you're walking up in front of a room of people and feel that everything, and you're not in a position to, I suppose, feel completely confident and at ease that you're about to put yourself out there in front of a room of people. So I think that's inescapable, but you definitely get more comfortable the more that you do. Yeah.
Yeah, so really good point. So the sense of nerves, I think, is always persistent. And I actually shared this earlier today with somebody who asked the same question. It's like the nerves are normal. What's different is that you're not freaked out by the sense of weirdness going to prior on stage. Whereas the first time you did it, there was almost it's unusual. You're not used to it, sense of panic. But now that you've done the reps, it's like, yes, this is normal, and actually there's no panic, because that's actually how you should feel. So yeah, it's a matter of reps. Just keep going up and doing it. So yeah, good stuff. From the time where you've had experience, Sam, are there any consistent things that you remind yourself to do that just seem to work for you? And what are those things?
I think any first time speaker, I'd always try out with a panel, or try out with a short gig, or try out with something where it's not just your voice. I think the first 10 words are the most difficult words that you're ever going to get out of your first public speaking gig. Beyond that, can you throw a question out to the audience really early on, get other people speaking, get other people contributing, and then bring it back? It gives you a little bit of time to settle yourself. I still do that on every single talk to this day, because you get a bit breathless. It's hard to maintain that even if you're kind of practiced and seasoned. So I think that's always one good thing to do is, throw a question out there, get other people talking, or be in an environment where multiple voices are being heard. So that's one tip to starters for 10.
That's such a great tip. This is, by the way, Bill, I know he's coming on in a second, but I just want to give a shout out to Bill Boorman for the true concept, because it definitely helps smooth the way. Because it's like you're in a crowd, you're in a group in tracks rather than on a stage to a lecture. And it just maybe the first time you do speak to a bunch of strangers in industry, your peer group and so on, but then you realize, oh, that's actually not a problem. So yeah, start like that, or start as a guest on a panel, or come onto something like Brainfood. This is a great way. Do a webinar, do a podcast. That's like totally different from getting on stage, but it's related because you are talking to a public, and that's going to be observed, which is different from a conversation that isn't as public. Try the easy way in. There's loads of options to do that. And by the way, you just got to make yourself available to people that run podcasts. They don't know whether you want to do it or not. You can say it on your LinkedIn saying, I'm available to talk. If I care about these topics, if you need a guest, reach out to me. And then just say yes to whenever anybody invites you.
Can I just say one thing? Just one more thing that Sam's just made me think about. So a really good tip is involving the audience quickly. So ask them to put their hands up and hands down, or stand up or sit down or whatever. Ask them to throw out questions. Another one which I think could be quite useful is get there early. If you're on after lunch, or if you're on first thing, or if you're on after a break or something, get there first while there's nobody else in the room. It just makes you feel a little bit like, I own this room. And as people start coming in and filling up, it's not like you're walking on stage and the curtain opens and you're like, holy shit, there's like 100,000 people here. It's, you see them all coming in slowly, and it just feels like it builds up quite gently. Yeah.
100%. And I think that's like the same for many social situations. If you're not an extroverted person, like arriving early, letting the room fill out, getting into your comfort zone is a very similar thing. And also remember, as the room is filling up, the room is filling up for you. I think that's the most important thing for every speaker to think about. You're not booked at an event because you don't have something interesting to say. If you're booked at an event, then somebody values your opinion, and they've had a conversation with you. They've gone through a briefing, and they believe that you're going to be the right fit for the audience. You're then providing your brief, your subject, and people are choosing your session over other sessions. They want you to do well. Implicitly, people want you to do well when you're on stage, and they're learning about things which they don't have the same level of knowledge or a different perspective that you're able to bring into that conversation. So I think that's one thing which people always get nervous. It's that kind of imposter syndrome. Am I offering something different? Am I at the bleeding edge? There's other people that have got better opinions than me. Well, if that was the case, you wouldn't have an auditorium of people in front of you. And if somebody takes away one thing, you've kind of done your job, right? You've been successful in what you've delivered. So I think that's another part of like that filling up of the room. Well, actually, they're there to see you. You're the name on the billing speaker.
Yeah, good stuff. So don't be your own worst critic. We are that in any case, so don't add to that sort of sense. The audience is there to hear you, so make sure you're there to do it. I love those points that you're making. I hope someone's making notes, by the way, because Sam's already introduced 3 or 4 things that make, I think, total sense. The interaction with audience is a brilliant play. I've seen really experienced speakers do the Simon Sinek's of this world. This is an individual that would speak in front of like a global A-list audience. He a direct addressal to the audience, and it gets them G'd up, it gets them kind of on your side when you start. So fantastic stuff. One tip that you would give to a new speaker coming on to RECFEST next week?
You are your own expert, and make sure it's just something that you feel super passionate about. Like if you've got an emotional or professional connection to something that you really believe in, then that's going to carry through. The audience is going to feel that. If you're presenting something that you don't believe in, or you're presenting something that's a corporate deck that's used in every territory on earth with pre-approved slides, you can tell the difference from a mile off from somebody who actually believes in what they're going to say. And then don't wear stripes. Never wear horizontal or vertical stripes. Because the cameras are going to pick it up and it's going to do that weird thing. So yeah, that's the other part there. And like just check all your stuff. Right, check all your stuff before you go on. Right, do you have a clicker? Have you got a glass of water? Like all of those things. That's the sort of bit where you're there. And then arrive at least 30 minutes early, right, for your talk minimum. And go and find the AV person and get mic'd up so it's not all a rush.
Yeah, and by the way, I like making friends with the AV people. Just to have a chat with them, shake them by the hand, learning the names and all the rest of it. Not to say they're ever going to sabotage what you're doing, but it gives you the sense of trust that it's not just an AV person on there, but it's Sam, the guy who's is twiddling the knobs in the background there, which is something that Sam is extremely. We'll move on. Sam, listen, wonderful to have your chat. You will be at RECFEST, I hope, and I presume. So I look forward very much to seeing you there, sir. Thank you so much for dropping some truth bombs to us. We're going to move on quickly because there's so many more guests to come on. But great to see you, Sam. You take care of yourself, and I'll see you next week, mate.
See you next week. See you soon.
You know what? Vanessa's mentioned some really interesting things here, and I wonder whether Vanessa's interested in coming on screen. Vanessa, I'm going to invite you on. Feel free to reject this if you're in your dressing gown or something, and you're not sort of you're indisposed in some way. But if you're there, I think the audience would really benefit from some of the things you're saying there.
Or if she's not removed her surgical tape yet.
Oh, she's injured.
No. So there must be some comments to do with surgical tape.
Okay, no worries. So yeah, basically, a really interesting point on power posing. Like I don't actually know anything about power posing. I've just been given some alcohol. I wonder whether I should drink that or not. Is this alcohol free? It is alcohol. I'm not going to drink that because, this is not something I do on air. But there's Vanessa. Vanessa Rath, how are you? Oh, you can see this is unscripted because I think Van's just like fiddling some knobs there as well. So anyway, let me know where you can get on, Van, whether that's okay. But I wanted to just explore the power pose concept. Don't worry, she's on the phone. Van, don't worry about it. I dropped you in totally without sort of planning. But I want to encourage people to just read up on the power posing. I think this is quite important because it helps project your voice, number one, but it also gives you like a psychological sort of sense where you just might feel a little bit more confident in terms of how things play out. But yeah, really, really interesting. We've got loads of people to bring on, so there's going to be no issue in this way. Kelly, I didn't realize you're in the audience. Love to bring you on in a sec as well. Oh, Angela knows about power poses. If you know Angela, you know that's true. So let's bring her on and she can talk to us about that. This would be interesting. So yeah, it's weird. Your body does make a difference. You know, do you like one of the things I still struggle with is, are you at the podium or do you walk or, you know, like do you move around or, you know, to what degree do you do that? Angela Cripps, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Wonderful to see you, Angela. Always immaculately turned out. Great. Like, who does your camera? You know, amazing. Anyway,
Logitech.
Logitech. Yeah. Angela, for the folks who don't know you, can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Yeah. So Angela Cripps, I'm the MD of the Recruiting Gym. I've been a trainer, coach, management consultant for 25 years and in the recruitment industry for 35.
Fantastic
and
stuff.
And a major boxing expert, by the way.
I don't know about expert, but definitely fan, definitely a passion of boxing.
No. Angela can drop like extreme advanced knowledge when it comes to the boxing world. She's a great fan. We should actually get together and actually watch some boxing.
We should, although I am beating you both, I think, on our what we've decided for since Christmas. We've been having a bit of a play on who's going to win and
predictions. Yeah, we probably need to run that as well. But okay, Angela, you're telling me about there's other things you might want to talk about, but let's jump into the power pose idea. Can you explain what that is and why it's important?
So this was actually some scientific research. I love it when it's backed up by scientific research, and it's about 2 minutes. That's all it needs. So this is before you go on stage or before you go into a meeting point. You're probably going to go to the toilets and do it, let's say, but if you feel comfortable doing it, if not, this is the Superwoman, the Wonder Woman, the Superman pose. It's your hands on your hips. It's a broad stance. And the reason why is that, well, it's your hormones actually get affected by your positioning. So this was some research that they did where they got groups of people to come into a room, to sit at a desk, and initially to cower, to fetal position, to literally make themselves as small as possible for 2 minutes. And they saw that it impacted their hormones. It physically impacted them on how they were going to be. And what they then did was get them to do the power pose for 2 minutes. And from a negative impact on their hormones, it then had a positive impact on their hormones. So things like adrenaline were increased, giving you the confidence, the positivity, hitting to your limbic brain even, and your amygdala. And it just changed your physiology. So by doing the pose, you were giving yourself permission to feel powerful. So all you need to do is for 2 minutes, put yourself in that stance, make yourself as big as possible. Think of the animal world. When they're scared, when they're frightened, when they're like, oh shit, they go big. They make as big as possible to give them. And that's what it's doing for them as well. It's giving them the confidence to stand up to whatever is coming for them. And I saw on Van's point that she still gets nervous. I still get nervous. I was trying to work out my first sort of talking in front of like 150, 200 people. And I reckon it was about 20 years ago now. So I still get the same feelings before walking on that stage as I did back then. So you've got to utilize it. You've got to appreciate it. So if it's becoming a little bit all encompassing, do the power pose. It changes how you feel and how you're going to react. You take more risks after it as well. It was amazing. I've got the link somewhere because we did it in the daily workout. So I was just trying to find it. I'll get that for people.
No, definitely do that. And it just reminds us that actually we like to think as mind and body as two separate things, like for, the Cartesian sort of dichotomy, but that was obviously BS because our minds, it's one body. We are totally one physical entity. And of course, your body's going to change the things that are running into your brain. So I think absolutely you should do this. Loads of exercises you could do. You got to open up your lungs as well. I think professional trainers, singers, and what have you, they do some voice exercises prior to going on stage. You just rock up with a mic and start talking or singing. There's all kinds of training that can go into that. So very, very interesting. Make sure the body is in good shape. Cool. Other stuff, Ange, because the body pose is one thing, but what are the sort of things have you learned in your career about public speaking that you've kind of leaned on, like things that tend to work for you on stage? Are there any little things that you do to make sure you're delivering a great talk?
Yeah, well, one of the first things I thought of when you talked about this, and I've got a list about 30, but I'm going to do about 5 because I know there's other people coming. So if you want to bring me back at the end if there's any missing, but it's about how you feel. We've talked about the power pose can help you and it can make a difference, and it will push you forward yourself. But you've got to feel good in yourself. And I really noticed this when I started doing talks for the recruiting gym, because if you know us, the gym, it's sweatshirts, it's t-shirts, and I did those talks in that, and that was very unusual for me. I am usually sort of dressed up, and I really didn't enjoy it. Oh my God, I felt awful. And looking back on them as well, because they get recorded and put out, and it's just like, yeah, I really wasn't at my best. And the reason I wore this shirt is because the next time I decided, no, I'm going to buy myself a beautiful shirt and it's going to stand out. And again, yeah, something that helps people to remember who you were as well from a visual point of view. And this goes with your slides. So where you were talking about those sort of simple things, for me, I'm trying to tap into a bit of NLP with my slides. I'm trying to get the visuals interested. So the pictures and the graphics and the movement and the charts. The data will help with the digitals. The auditories, get some sound in there that isn't you. So whether that's through audience participation or whether you've got a video on your slide, something that's going to grab people's ears and grab that intention. And then the storytelling for the kinesthetics, the people that want to feel it, then get yourself, make sure there's some stories that expand on your points that will bring it to life for people, and hopefully relevant ones that they go, yeah, that's me as well, or I understand that. And that could be you sharing that you are nervous, or this is something that you have to push yourself to do, but you do enjoy it by the end of it, because there'll be loads of people sitting there going, I never push myself because I don't think I'll enjoy it. Maybe I will next time. And that's something we've done as well, is really help people, like you said, webinars. Feel free. We do so many webinars. So if you're one of those people that would like to get involved and push yourself, then reach out to me. I'm happy to put you on there in a nice, comfortable environment. Ask the Coach is a good one because there's 4 people on there. It's a bit of a laugh. It's a Friday lunchtime, so nice and easy. So that would be a few pointers.
No, that's a brilliant tip. Guys, please do connect with Ange. I'm going to share Angela's LinkedIn in a second in the Crowdcast. If you've got it, by the way, just share it anyway, because that's a genuine offer. Like, if you are sitting there and you've never given a public talk, but you know what, you want to, not because you're vain or you're an egotist, it's because you want to stretch yourself a little bit, and you do have some knowledge and expertise to share, and you know that it's going to help your profile and that's going to help your career, and all good things might emerge from that. Please get in touch with Angela on this, and volunteer yourself in. It's like, our problem as people that do podcasts and webinars and events is that we don't readily identify who's up for doing a talk. And so we've got this big ocean of people that could give a talk, but we can't see who they are. And therefore we always end up leaning on the people that we know will be up for it. So you just got to volunteer yourself. There's a little bit of responsibility for people who have yet to do a talk to step up and say, I want to do it, and just reach out to event organizers. I assure you, they really want to hear from people that are saying, yeah, I want to step in. So yeah, please go ahead and do that. Adam, what are your thoughts on Angela's points? What was your favorite one from all of that?
I've been sitting here trying to practice how would I go about my doing this power pose, and like how my physiology would like react to that, and how my I think your brain and your body are so definitely connected, and like a positive mind, people with a more positive type of mindset tend to get sick a lot less, just as a straightforward example of that.
Yeah, did you see, I mean, by the way, it kind of resonates at a very like visceral level, like Joe Hart, he's been complimented online for his body posture and how amazing his posture is and all the rest of it. By the way, folks who don't, so Joe Hart's the ex-England goalkeeper. He's been brought in,
all about position.
Yeah, and he's actually very conscious about it, because he said, I want to feel strong on stage, and he did that when he was a professional goalkeeper. He's actually just retired last season, I believe. So he's basically said, okay, this is actually important from a professional performance point of view. As an elite sports person, it's brought that into commentary, and actually people have remarked upon it. So clearly it's making an impact, because people say, oh, Joe's looking strong there, you know?
Yeah. It's one of the first things goalies are trained, actually, is their body posture and their positioning, and make themselves as big as possible. Again, it makes sense. You want to be as big as possible to cover the goal, and give that feeling of strength as well. So if you have got someone and someone coming towards you, you're the one with the power, you're the one that's standing there strong. They're going to give way, not you. And that's really important as a goalkeeper. We've got goalie in our family, so we get to hear some of this stuff from behind the scenes. But I remember that being some of the first stuff that's trained. It's really important. And the phrase "fake it till you make it," unfortunately, did a bit of a disservice to this, because it is true, but we've put a twist on it now. And it was in this webinar about the power pose. It's fake it till you become it. Because actually, if you keep putting yourself in that position, you end up being what you wanted to be. So it's not a negative thing of sort of fake it till you make it. It was a very 80s, wasn't it? And it was like, okay, yeah, you're just winging it. No, keep doing it until it actually becomes natural. So fake
that's a brilliant, words are so important, and that's a brilliant reframing of that point to make it a lot more accessible and less shady sounding.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, that all came from that webinar with the lady around that power pose. It's fabulous. Right, couple more points. Have a plant, not a literal plant. Put someone in the audience in the front row that is going to smile at you, and smile as soon as you start. Remember to smile. Remember to breathe, because all of that adrenaline is going to be running around, and it's going to make you feel a bit sick as well. So if you've got someone that you can look at, make eye contact with in there, and ideally, if you're going to have a Q&A at the end, have a plant that will ask the first question, because once that happens, then the rest tend to come. So you usually always see me at the front unless I got there late, and I will be happy to ask that first question, and I'll let people know that are speaking. If I know them, I'll have a question if you want to come to me, sort of thing, because that makes such a difference when you're not hanging around waiting and it's all a bit nervous, and people can get straight into it. So yeah, feel free to have a plant. Practice. I think everyone knows that one, but for me, it's that first 30 seconds. Once you get past that, you're in it, you're doing it, you're okay. But if you mess up that first 30 seconds, it can go really wrong. So keep that in your head as well. That's probably enough to let other people come on.
I was going to say, stop nattering, and no, you've been great. But a couple of things. I think the having a friendly face in the audience is so important. And like I say, if it doesn't exist, get your friend to do that, because that really helps. Audience. I remember some of the worst talks that I've ever given is either when I've not been able to see the audience due to the lighting, or when there's been a massive gap between the audience and the stage. Like sometimes there is that situation. And then it's like, it's difficult to just because you vibe off what's happening in the crowd a little bit. Which is, by the way, another reason why the first 30 seconds is very important. Because if you can get that sort of knocked out and the audience engaged early, you can feel that from their own body language and their own behavior. Okay, Angela, one quick tip. One quick tip, Angela, before you go. For a new speaker in RECFEST next week, what advice would you give them?
Enjoy it. Try and enjoy it. I know it's going to be really hard, but you will at the end of it. So just get that now, that actually you're going to enjoy it and it's going to be a positive experience. And if you need that plant, I'm there next week, so just reach out to me. I have got about 6-7 booked of people that want to go and see, but if I'm not booked for your one, I'll try and fit it in. There we go.
Fantastic stuff. Angela, wonderful to see you on stage, sort of on screen now, and of course I'll see you next week, so we'll have a hug and a chat then. Angela Cripps, everybody. Okay, cool. Let's keep rolling forward. By the way, I know the sense of time. We're literally flying through this session. We always do this before we bring Akbar on. I wanted to just quickly say we care about this topic. Brainfood Live has to come off air in a couple of minutes. We don't want to make sure that the conversation ends with us. So if you want to kind of learn a bit more or feel comfortable with public speaking, Now is the time to connect with everyone else who is sharing the same interest and passion, including the people we're bringing on screen to share some of this stuff. So grab your LinkedIn URL, share it in the chat stream if you're watching this on Crowdcast. If you are watching this on any of the LinkedIns out there, grab your LinkedIn URL and share your URL into the comment thread, and then connect with everyone who's done the same. What's going to end up happening is you're going to walk away with 20, 30, 40 new connections that care about this topic and may provide you with the support you need. So go ahead and do that. Okay, cool. I think people are doing this. Let's bring on Akbar Karenga, accept on stage.
Just while you're bringing Akbar on, I just wanted to quickly amplify something you said, which was like about being on stage and not being able to see people like in the audience. There is nothing worse than not being able to get that feedback. And in fact, it's bad enough on Microsoft Teams when you click share your screen and then you can't see the people and you're just talking and you have to every 5 minutes go, is everyone still there?
Yeah, let me tell you, the worst talk I ever gave was actually a webinar where I couldn't see the audience. And it was just literally me lecturing to a screen with no feedback. And it was like, I'm never going to do that again because it felt so uncomfortable during the course of this period.
I've done 15 minutes and everybody dropped off and I hadn't even realized that either I'd got cut off or they had.
Mate, 15 minutes as much as anybody's going to give you, Adam. Anyway, we've got Akbar Karenga, the legend that is. Akbar, wonderful to see you, sir. How are you doing? Why don't you quickly introduce yourself, Akbar? Who are you? What it is you do?
Thank you. I am on the talent team here at Nala Money. I'm the co-founder of the Black Recruiter Network. I'm also head of membership for District 4, which is about helping recruiters build their own businesses. And I run my own consultancy called Marusi for HR, operations, fundraising for startups.
This is the busiest man in the world because not only does he conduct all of this stuff, but he also gets busy with loads of parties and events and all this type of stuff. I follow Akbar's Instagram and I'm thinking, is there a body double? Because how can one man pack in so much in his own life? But listen, Akbar, wonderful to get you on because not only are you a really compelling speaker, I've seen you on stage and you really have the audience in sometimes really a sense of control, but you've also been professionally trained and had some like proper coaching on how this is. So I wonder whether you could share the impact of that training, or was there anything in particular you took from that you've been able to really deploy and you found useful?
Yeah, so I'm from a ESL, English as a second language teaching background. I used to teach it for a bit and I used to train people to do it. Hundreds of people in China for 5 years. And I had great training, and there's certain theories of communication that are science. So that's where I learned it from. I'd probably say the two key ones is, the first one is the silent period. So Noam Chomsky talks about language acquisition. Think about when you're a child, you start listening first, you start speaking, then you start reading, then you start writing. But when you're in a situation where you're about to learn something new, your brain needs to get put into the context of what's happening, and you need to respect the silent period. So that's why you see a lot of introductions. It's usually like, oh, here's who I am, or give something like a low ball, low efforts before you go into the meaty stuff of your talk. So definitely the silent period. And then another theory is peer-to-peer learning is always stronger than a guide on the stage kind of talking to you about something. I know it seems weird, but again, take it back to a teaching context or when you were younger. There were stupid things you would do because your friend said so. But then if there was this position of authority who's telling you that, so in a presentation, have a genuine pause where you ask them to engage the person sitting next to them or some sort of activity. Then I was delivering trainings and getting trainings delivered to me just when mobile phone connectivity was getting really, really good. I would highly encourage everyone to lean into the second screen using tools like Slido, Kazoo, take a photo, here's a QR code, because somebody's going to have the phone in their hand and you want to weaponize it to be a focus to you, as opposed to them going, oh, that email's there. And then last but not least,
sorry, hold up. That is actually a genius bit of insight. And at the first time I've heard anybody say this, But I think it's really worth just underlining, everyone is already on their mobile phone. So don't be upset that they're on their mobile phone scrolling. That's just what they're going to do, no matter how compelling you are as a speaker. But turn that to your advantage, and get them to use the mobile phone and contribute to the experience of the speech. Take the QR code, use a Slido. Slido, I think, is a polling tool, or it's something you can pose a question and stuff. Get them interacting in some way, and then suddenly your engagement is just going to spike up, and the person's not going to feel guilty because they're actually engaged. Get them to tweet something to say, hey, listen, if you like this talk or whatnot, boom, 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 get it out there. Love it. Sorry, Akbar, there was go on to the fourth point.
So a communication gap. On a date, when somebody goes, oh, what do you do? They ask it because they don't know. So I think a lot of times people present something, or they put something on a presentation, and they just spoon feed everything to them. So you've got statistics about staff turnover over the next year. Hey, here are 3 numbers. What do you think for next year? For the last year, what was the staff turnover for our company? Silence. Let them play it in their head. Let them work it out. They're trying to make the connections, and then you jump in. It's an extra 20 seconds, and then you've couched it because they've done the work already. They're creating their own communication gap in their own head. That's the last one.
I love that again, Akbar, because can we see, folks, like, or can we visualize what's going on? We're talking about getting the viewers to be activated mentally into the talk, so they're not just passively, you know, absorbing you lecturing at them, but you're asking them to think. You're asking them to contribute with the phone. You're asking them to participate, and then suddenly it becomes less of one of those boring classroom lectures, but a really interactive session where everyone's contributing to it. That's really brilliant tips, man. Fantastic stuff.
I've got a link here. So this is Dave Weller. He literally taught me so much when I was in Shanghai. And there's a theory called test, teach, test. It's a way to structure a presentation where you can give them a challenge, you show them something, and then ask them to produce something at the end. He's great. His website, please follow him. He knows way more than me, and half the stuff that he's forgotten is absolutely amazing.
Let me ask you a tough question, Akbar. And the reason why I asked you this is simply so that we can kind of explore, what not to do. Do you have any experience of making a bad mistake on stage? And if so, what was that mistake, and why did you make it? Like, can we understand the circumstances so that other people might kind of avoid that slip up?
Yeah, I remember. So it was in-house recruitment live. It was actually the first time I met Mr. Gordon over there. It was on a panel that was outrageously underqualified compared to the other people. I had Eunice, who was the head of Lego. I had James, who was the head of the known recruiting. And I was just little startup person. It was my second ever talent job. And I kept on in the panel going, yeah, I agree with, like the Nick Clegg story. It was just like I was overawed by who was there, and I didn't add anything to it. And then after I got off stage going, well, I was crap, wasn't I? So definitely there, and lack of preparation. But then I didn't come there with like a reason why I should have been speaking. So I just followed the general wave of the conversation. That's maybe one of the dangers of panels, because it's just like you don't want to quote unquote challenge the other person. But I did invest in actually saying, I need to say something because I believe this, because I think this.
Yeah, really, really interesting.
Do I need to disagree with him here in order to maintain my relevance to this conversation?
I think it's a writing tool as well. And natural tension is nice. It's interesting. It's captivating.
It is, and it's a difficult line to draw on, because you don't want to get involved in a tough dispute, because that's actually unpleasant viewing for everyone. But in normal cases, that doesn't happen, and most people are able to understand, as you know, people are observing this and they want to get information as well as be entertained somewhat. So but I understand sort of how that works. Okay, we're flying through this sort of situation here, so we've got to leave it. Akbar, you're definitely at RECFEST next week. I think you're hosting one of the stages, aren't you? So I'm also hosting, so we'll miss each other then, but we'll catch up obviously when we're off. So wonderful to have you on the show today, and I'll see you next week, mate.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Great tips, hey. Okay, we're going to keep rolling forward. We've got Christina, who's been very patient. Bill, unfortunately, has pinged me a message saying he's got an emergency. He's got to drop off. I'm really sorry about that, Bill. The king of online talks, really. But let's get Christina on. We might just finish with her. And I'd love to hear what Christina's got to say as well. There she is. How are you doing, Christina?
I am good. This has been amazing. It's like I'd made a few notes before we started, and it's like damn, I was going to say that. Damn, I was going to say that. So yeah, it's really valuable.
There's at least a dozen things that I'm going to take away from this, and then think, you know what, I'm going to try and experiment and play into this, because I'm missing a beat here as well. Fantastic stuff. Christina, for the people who don't know you, quickly introduce yourself. Who are you? What it is you do?
So I'm Christina Robinson from Green Umbrella Marketing. I'm MD over here, and we social media, recruitment marketing, that's what we do. I'll keep it nice and short. I obviously do a little bit of public speaking too. You
do. And did I get this right, Christina? But you're involved in some sort of speaking thing, aren't you? Like some sort of society that does this. Is that correct? Or is that...
Yeah, I have. Not currently, but I have been in the past. So I started speaking back in sort of 2012, and in about 2022, I kind of went, okay, maybe I should actually do some training now. So I've invested in some training. I've been part of some organisations since then, which has just massively elevated what I do, mostly because I'm a rule breaker.
What do you mean by this?
So when you go through a public speaking course, there's lots of rules that they give you in terms of how you should speak and how you should use the stage, and the fact you shouldn't move around too much, and all this sort of stuff. And what happens is, when you present in that way, when you present as a template, you lose so much. You have to be you. You have to present in a way that is absolutely you. And so I think it is everything we've shared with you today. If you're speaking for the first time, if you just take one, maybe two of these tips, implement that, and then find your way from there. And you'll watch other speakers, like what the things that they're doing. Like, I really like that. That resonates with me. And then embrace that too. And essentially come up with your own style of speaking. I move on stage. I move way more than anyone should. I know that. Like, even now, my hands are going everywhere, but that's who I am. I'm this ball of energy, and that's what people buy into. And I think the best piece of advice I've ever been given about public speaking is that when you're on that stage, when you look out at that audience, let's say you've got 100 people there, 20 of them are going to absolutely love you. They're the ones that are going to run up to you afterwards. They're going to follow up with you on LinkedIn. They're the ones that are going to do business with you. 20 of them are going to think you're a dickhead. It doesn't matter what you do, you're just not the person for them. And the rest are just a bit ambivalent. And maybe next time they see you speak, they'll be more bought in and they'll become one of the 20 then. And when we understand that, we really step into who we are. And we're just there for those 20 people, that 20% of that audience that are ready, like they want us. And I think it's really important when you remember that you're there for the people that want to work with you, and you're showing up for them, like everything just flows so much better.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, basically, you can't win the entire audience all the time. And there's going to be people that just are malcontents. Other people just may genuinely disagree with what you're saying. But that's not the issue. That's going to be the case. If we're just talking about already established truths, you wouldn't be on stage. The reason why you're on stage is because you've got an insight or a perspective or an experience that might just push the edges a little bit. And that's something, therefore, it might be there in some sort of a contest. So don't worry about grabbing the entire audience out there. What about things that you kind of, I want to explore the movement thing, because a lot of people like to pace around. I actually don't know whether I do this very well, or you know, what happens. A lot of people stand at podium. What's your general advice on how you should like physically move around the stage, presuming there's a stage from which you could do that moving?
So move with purpose. Definitely, like if you're just like wandering as you're talking, that's not going to work. You need to move with purpose. One of the things I would say is, so as I'm looking out at an audience, if I'm talking about the pain, okay, whatever I'm presenting, the pain, the frustration, I'm going to go to the right of the stage. Anytime I'm talking about pain, I'm going to be in the same place on the stage. When I'm then talking about the opposite of that, the joy, the solution, I'm on the other side of the stage. So that movement in between, it's like we're taking the audience on a journey then. When you're on stage, you are the conductor, they are the orchestra.
I had no idea that you were doing that. So your direction of travel is actually already thought about. When you're dealing problem, you're going to move to the right. Solution moves to the left. Yeah, I can see why that would work, because you're swinging, you know, you're directing physically the attention of the audience. That's very, very smart. Again,
and even if you're stood on a podium, if you're on Zoom, you're on a screen, you can still do this, and it's just the way your body goes. You know, I've got this little sliver on screen now, and I can still do it. I'm taking you with me on that journey.
Yeah. You know what? You're not going to like this, Christina, but I'm going to introduce an example here of someone who uses body language in a way to deliver a point, and it's now become a signature of how he does it, and that's obviously Donald Trump. Now he's obviously you know, not my cup of tea to say at the very least, but he's got certain actions. Yeah. Like this.
He's a fantastic public speaker and a fantastic influencer because of those things.
They're signature moments that they signpost the points that he's trying to make. And yeah, I actually haven't even thought about this, but I'm going to maybe start thinking about where I move, because I do wonder it kind of without sort of any kind of strategy, and I think that's a mistake as well. You know, I think either should stand in the middle of the stage and just talk at people, or you know, maybe make some movement. But I need to do something different. Okay, Christina, we're really running out of time, but let me just leave you a final thing. One tip that you've got for a new speaker is listen to all of this, write in loads of notes, and they're going to deliver a first talk at RECFEST next week. What advice would you give that person?
The first line that comes out of your mouth counts. So when you get up on that stage, front and center, right at the front of the stage, so your toes are nearly almost over the edge of it, deliver that first line, take a breath, and then just flow. The only thing you need to worry about is that first line. If you deliver that, you've got the hook, you've got the audience, the rest of it, you just go with it.
I love that.
The rest of it just happens.
It's almost like it creates the momentum and it drags your performance forward. I would even say, if you're going to rehearse, I'm a bad rehearser, but if you're going to rehearse anything, execution of that first line or the first 30 seconds, the first thing that comes out of your mouth, you probably should try and nail that. Because that's your time to collect and capture the audience. Brilliant stuff, Christina. Listen, you're at RECFEST, I believe. Are you? Tell me you are.
I am. I left it too late, so I'm on the wait list. So if anyone's got a ticket, let me know. I've already got the FOMO.
I can probably help, but I probably need to put you into a poetry T-shirt.
Oh,
I can do that. I'll wear whatever you want me to, Adam.
You are prepared to sell everything, Christina. Get in there, but I'm serious. Get in there. It's going to be amazing. So I hope to see you there, but if not, we'll catch up soon, okay?
Absolutely.
Great. I'll tell you what, every person has come on screen here and given me like genuinely new things I didn't even know or hadn't thought about. So some of this is just like gold dust. I'm definitely going to like try and have a think about this and improve the way in which I talk. I think it's really important. All right, that's about it. Adam, thanks for joining again. What's your plans for the weekend, man? Anything interesting?
Yeah, the Euros quarterfinals. Enjoy looking forward to that. Tour de France. I'm absolutely loving watching that. And I'm going to do some exercise. You?
Yeah, fantastic. I am going to miss the England game. Would you believe? I can't believe this. But I'm in the Netherlands now, and it wasn't me booking the flights. But basically, I instructed the logistics guys when I wanted to fly and all the rest of it. And I unthinkingly said, "Oh yeah, afternoon's good. I could have a lie-in on Saturday morning." Obviously, it's been booked in at the time when just the kickoff is happening. So absolute disaster. I might be one of those where I have to land at Heathrow, just ignore everyone, and then watch it on replay as we go. But we'll see. Anyway, that's about it. Come.
Guesses who I'm supporting?
Well, you're going to be supporting anybody who is in England, I assume.
Any guesses who I'm supporting?
Oh yeah, you're trying to get French citizenship, aren't you? For some reason. Dear oh dear.
I just love France.
All right, listen. Adam, I'll see you later. You are at RECFEST, aren't you? Is that right? No?
No, I'm not. It's actually my son's birthday.
Oh, wow. Well, happy birthday to Rory then. And yeah, I'll catch up with you soon. Thanks for coming on the show, man. Speak to you soon, dude. Okay, everybody, that's it. Thank you so much for watching Brainfood Live on air. Big news, no Brainfood Live next week. Why? Because it's on the day after RECFEST. And obviously, I'm going to be at RECFEST. It's going to be a massive blast out. And to be honest with you, I didn't fancy doing a live stream immediately afterward. And I didn't want to force guests who probably would be at the festival to do that as well. So there's no Brainfood Live next week. We do have a full schedule going forward for the weeks afterward, and it's going to be fantastic. Check out the Crowdcast link, and you'll get all of the information on there. We've got on the 16th of July, we've got the Founders Focus returning on a semi-weekly basis, up close and personal with Sam Desi, CEO of Pop, a wonderful product that I think is one of those that's a real potential game changer in terms of how we use AI in recruiting. Make sure you sign up for that. Brainfood Live, next one is how to ethically implement AI into TA. We've got some really interesting research from the guys at Willow. They're going to come on screen and help talk us through what their framework is. So if you're thinking about adopting artificial intelligence into your stack and you're not sure about how to do it ethically, that is the show for you. We've got Steve Bartel coming on at another Founders Focus, CEO of Gem, great CRM ATS product. Thereafter, we've got your new job as a recruitment leader, 100-day plan, Brainfood Live. Brainfood Live again, how to hire a chief people officer, how to use real use cases in recruitment automation, how to build a job scraper with Python. It's all there. I'll be sending everyone an email on the schedule. Make sure you sign up for every one of those. And we'll see you not next week, but in 2 weeks' time. Thanks for watching, everybody.